Hey folks, and welcome back to Sub 2 Investor. In this episode, I am interviewing Wyatt Reed. He is a real estate investor who is absolutely crushing it, and I wanted to sit down and learn from him how he's utilizing seller financing to create these massive cash flow spreads in his portfolio, which boasts of, I think, over 150 properties. So this dude is doing a lot of deals, has a lot of experience. One key takeaway from this interview is that you can blend the BRRRR strategy of buying cash and then doing a refinance with back-end seller financing. But then the magic in what he's doing, and why I'm really interested in this conversation that we had, is that it really just opens up the doors to multiple ways of acquiring properties in terms of the funding of the properties. So you're going to learn a lot. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching. All right, well, welcome to the Sub 2 Investors Show. Today I have a very special guest, an actual creative finance investor who I first met on a sort of mastermind call, and he impressed me right off the bat. I could tell this guy knew what he was doing and was executing creative finance deals in a very smart and strategic way that caught my attention, and so I wanted to bring him on to our channel here to introduce him, learn from him, and all that good stuff. So this is Wyatt Reed. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Wyatt?
Man, thank you so much for being on. Thank you so much for having me on your show. Sorry, I do a podcast too, and I'm used to saying thanks for being on the show. So no, thanks for having me, man. Yeah, I'm just a kid from small town Tennessee, man, and I just had I've always felt like there was more for me, and you know, I made it to where I wanted to be. You know, I worked in a factory. I worked my way up from being just a regular everyday worker on the line. I worked my way up into maintenance, and then I worked my way up into engineering. All that without a degree, and so I had a good work ethic. I just didn't like school that much, you know, and so I just made it to where I thought I wanted to be in life. And man, I knew there was something more. So, yeah, real estate's the way to go for sure. Right.
Nice. So where are you located again in the country?
Yeah. We're outside of, Columbia, Tennessee, just a little south of Columbia. We're about an hour south of Nashville. We're about an hour north of Huntsville, Alabama. And that's pretty much where we do most of our investing is North Alabama, Southern Middle Tennessee.
Gotcha. So just a solid Midwestern type market. When people ask about, folks who are on the coasts are asking about, where to invest, it's too expensive to invest in New Jersey or California. What would you say to them?
Yeah, man. Well, the thing is, I guess it's easier for me to say because we've got such a good market, but I always tell people, like, try to start in your backyard if you can. It's just so much easier. I tell people all the time, like, virtual can make you look like a dummy real quick, right? I've had several of people who I look up to, who I know are doing bigger, better things than me, that have sent me deals in my area and said, hey, this is a great deal. This is, there's no structure issues, blah, 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 blah. And I go and the house is falling in. Right. It was terrible. So I'm like, man, what are you doing? Why did I even drive out here and look at this house for, So I always try to say, start in your backyard, but if you can't, you really need to get locked in with some good people in the areas like the Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia areas. Those are really good areas. We've looked at some in Florida as well. But I mean, things are expensive everywhere. Like if I go to Nashville, I'm not doing deals in Nashville, it's absolutely ridiculous. And there are people that are doing deals, but they're locked into that community. Right. So like I stay on the outskirts of those main cities, those what we call submarkets. And there's a lot less competition. There are a lot cheaper properties. Things may move a little bit slower, but that's where we've kind of dove in and had so much success with. I will say this: I had a guy come into our community. He's from Chicago, And he told me like right off the bat, it also just depends on your model. Like, are you doing single family homes, or are you trying to do bigger, right? Because he came in, he's never done a deal before, ever, and he was like, I want to do a storage facility. And I was like, I've bought a couple of storage facilities before. It's not as complicated as you might think, uh, but I was like, just do some single family in your backyard. Like, let's get some revenue going, and then like the storage facilities, the bigger things, they'll come, right? But he was so adamant, and like we ran numbers on probably 40 or 50 uh, storage facilities all across the country. And he finally actually found one that was a really good deal in South Alabama. And he drove all the way from South Alabama. I got some of my guys here from Alabama, and we all met up. We had a good time. We went out and ate. We went and looked and walked this storage facility. We ran the numbers together, and he actually just bought it like a week ago. And he spent 2 weeks down here with his dad. He's a young dude. Spent 2 weeks with his dad out here, cleaning up the facility, just going out and passing out flyers, getting everything, where it needs to be. And so like he's been successful up until this point with it. He's fixing to refinance out of it and get the hard money lender his money back. And so, like I said, I I think he had the ability to do it without us, but we made it so much easier for him to do that deal down here. Um, you know, him being from Chicago and stuff like that. So I think if you can get into a community
Right.
and, have people to help and support you, I think it makes it so much easier.
That's a great point. I mean, it's like he operated that deal like he was a local kind of. I mean, I think maybe that's part of the key takeaway in that story. But you mentioned business model, and let's just get to that real quick so that folks can understand what your primary business model is, like what you do, what Wyatt does in his business.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I tell people all the time, I'm a lazy investor, man. I want to have the easiest investing model that I can because I want to be able to go and not have to worry about things back home. And so, when we first started out, we were doing flips, we were buying rentals, little crappy rentals that really didn't cash flow at all. And I figured out that really wasn't the way to go. And so we just went heavy into the flips, right? And we were doing 5 or 6 flips at a time, and we were robbing Peter to pay Paul. We were pulling from projects to cover other projects. Our it was insane because our first year, I think when we finally got the taxes back, like it said that we had made $600,000, but we were dead broke. And we were like, where did all this money go, right? And so we kind of hit a wall, and we decided we met some people who were doing creative financing, seller financing, and they were like, hey, you need to do this. Well, we didn't just step into it at first. Like we were like, we knew what we were doing with the flips. We were struggling, but like it was something we knew, right? We didn't understand the creative financing stuff. And I still kick myself to this day for not starting sooner in the creative financing. But we are 90%, maybe 95% seller financing now, everything. So we're looking to buy properties. We're buying them cash with hard money, private money. We're turning around and using the Burr method: buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. But instead of putting a renter in there, we're seller financing on the back end, right? And when I say seller financing, obviously we can back this up a little bit. And, seller financing is obviously when you finance through the seller, right? You can get around the banks. You can get around hard money, private money. You can do seller financing on the front end with the actual seller themselves, or you can seller finance on the back end with a tenant buyer, and you're the seller, right? So there's a lot that we can dive into right there. But the thing to take it back to the lazy investing, the thing that I love about seller financing is that they're maintaining the property. They have all the responsibility. They're paying insurance, taxes. They're paying a mortgage payment, right? So essentially we're acting as the bank and not the landlord. And that's worth everything to me, is having my freedom, right? Not having to deal with tenants and toilets.
Yeah, this is something. So when you talk about this with people, their eyes probably light up, and they're like, "Oh my gosh." How many people end up actually like executing on it and not pivoting to some other exit strategy? I mean, do you find that this actually lands with people, like where they actually go out
The
and
ev
execute here?
everybody loves it, man, and I like you attract essentially who you are and what you do, right? So if you're a flipper, you're going to attract people who want to flip, right? And so I've attracted people who want to build a portfolio and have an amazing life, like have a free life to be able to do what they want to do. And so, like, it depends. If somebody comes in and they're brand new, they don't know anything, then I can get them towards the seller financing. Like, and I don't just push seller financing. Like, I teach people how to be well-rounded investors. Like, if you have something come in where we can make $20,000 on it on a wholesale deal, then we're going to do it. If you have something come in where we're going to make $60,000 on a flip, then we're going to do it. But I always tell people at the foundation of everything you do should be cash flow. Because once you have enough, and this is something I found out the hard way, is once you have enough cash flow, you don't have to chase deals anymore. You don't have to do things that you don't want to do anymore, right?
It's
And so
huge.
that's the true freedom right there. Is like I don't have to chase deals anymore.
It's so massive, man, because I mean that's exactly my journey too. Getting into real estate, doing wholesaling, doing some flips, trying to build a rental portfolio. Like those are three totally different exit strategies. And then getting into creative finance and realizing this is how you actually produce monthly income. None of those other strategies are as reliable. They can be, but they're more of a grind, like way more of a grind. Whereas with this model that you're talking about, once you do that work on the front end being you sell it to seller financing, boom, starts cash flowing, you're done. Like there might be an event, but chances are low that there will be. And so then, like you're saying, you start to build a portfolio. Now you don't have to go wholesale a deal or go do a flip to provide income. You can say no to deals. You actually have more leverage as
Yeah.
a buyer, don't you?
Yep, absolutely. I tell my team all the time. I got a one or two sales guys, and they're always so hungry for it. And like when you have employees and stuff like that, like it's a little bit of a different thing because you gotta provide for them, right? And they're always so hungry for a deal. And even if we're like $5,000 off, I'm like, tell them take the other offer, right? Somebody says, hey, I got somebody else that's offering me this, take it. I don't have to have it, and it kills them sometimes, but it leads to juicier deals. It leads to the better deals where they get paid better, we get paid better, and they know it. It's just
Yeah.
the thrill of the chase sometimes.
Right, right. It makes sense. You got a team that now, yeah, there might be a little more pressure to get a deal locked under contract. But let's dive a little bit more into. Well, there's a couple of things you said because I want to get into the model more specifically because some folks are mainly acquiring creatively, like sub two or seller finance. When we're talking about acquiring creatively, it's basically those two options, right? You either take
Mhm.
over a mortgage or you structure terms on a free and clear property, right?
Right.
Um, but you're not doing that. So let's talk about the front end before we get. I want to talk about seller finance after this, like your exit strategy and why that's golden and actually probably more the key to more than anything. But tell me about the front end of why you're chasing down your. So you have more of like a rehab background. It seems like you're really keen. You got a keen on rehabbing. You're good at it. You got a team, got contractors. Is that one reason why you're doing this Burr model and then doing, I'm assuming, like a DSCR with a rates? Rates aren't amazing right now. So tell us, like, walk us through why are you focusing on these cash deals
Mhm.
versus like acquiring sub two?
So, yeah, I haven't gotten into the sub two stuff yet. I don't know that I ever will, to be honest with you. But I may. We have looked at some sub two deals before. We just hadn't really made anything truly happen with them. So, um, essentially, here's what I do. We get leads that come in, and we offer them a cash offer first. Like we anchor with a cash offer, and the better you get at pitching multiple offers, the lower your cash offer usually gets. Like you said, we have more leverage. We don't really want them to take our cash offer. We want them to take our seller finance offer or our novation offer or whatever else we're pitching. So we'll anchor with a cash offer, and if they take it, awesome. We're gonna take it. We're gonna do the Burr method, and we're gonna put a seller finance tenant buyer on the back end, right? But if we're talking to a landlord, kind of like what you were saying earlier, we both got into this for passive income, mailbox money, right? So did they. So did every landlord. But once you get into it, you realize, man, this isn't as passive as I thought it was, right? And so if you're able to pitch the low ball offer or the cash offer, and you're able to paint them a picture, if you're talking to a landlord, of what they actually got into real estate for. If they say no to the cash offer, you're like, okay, well, hey, look, I know you're a landlord, I'm a landlord too, you got into this for passive income. Now you're dealing with tenants and this, that, and the other, and you're wanting to sell for some reason or the other. Most of the time, landlords don't have to have the money, right? As if you have an owner, they've got to have the money to move into another house. But if you're dealing with a landlord, most of the time they don't just have to have the money. So we're pitching terms to them specifically because if you get terms on the front end and you seller finance on the back end, it's a juicier deal. It's a way, way, way better deal. So we anchor with the cash, then we pitch the seller finance offer. So we're pitching both if we can, and we'll get them under contract. Obviously, the bank is going to give you 75% if you're using a DSCR lender. If you're using a small local bank, they'll give you up to 80% of the appraised value. So we've just got to come all in under that value so that we can get private money back to who it needs to go back to, right?
Okay, let's just break down a couple things there. So
Right.
because I love it. So what's crazy about this, I like having you on here, is because on this channel I talk a lot about sub two,
Mm.
and but really the magic is in seller financing on the back end. People don't understand it. They think I can just get a sub two deal and cash flow like these guys do. And it's like, no, you must learn how to sell on seller financing. And again, people's eyes glaze over because they're like, what is seller financing? But like, you're not even acquiring sub two. This is not something you're not targeting sub two. Seems
Mm.
like you may not have done a sub two. There's no shame, and if you
No.
haven't done it, because you're crushing it. Like who cares? That's why I tell. It's like sub two doesn't make the magic, but the magic is in what you're talking about in the exit, which we'll get to in a second. But I just want people to like realize that for a second, that they can actually build these portfolios with cash flow when they sell on seller finance just by buying. They can buy with seller finance like you're talking about, or with a cash offer where you're borrowing. Are you borrowing typically private or hard money? Probably private.
Yep, both. I mean,
Okay,
it
both.
depends on where we're at, how many deals we got going on at one time, stuff like that.
So some folks, yeah. So it's a totally different skill set to learn how to buy sub two. That's one skill set, and then like let's learn how to buy a good cash deal. So like now we have to learn how to run numbers cash wise. And when you're doing that, first of all, I love what you're saying because I totally agree that when you're given an offer, a cash offer, and a seller finance offer. And what you're saying is that with tired landlords, that seller finance offer just it's a natural offer to give. They want the cash flow. They got into investing for the cash flow. So if it's a landlord or an absentee owner who's renting it out, you're going to give them a seller finance offer that's a higher price, but it's terms. Or like now, but now your cash offer can be a little bit lower probably than you would give if you were just wholesaling and trying to just get deals because you don't
Right.
really want them to take the cash offer.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they probably sometimes do take the cash offer. Am I right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And
It's good. I mean, it gives you more confidence in your lower cash offer for sure. Because you don't want them to take it, right? And like I just wanted to say this too, like as you were talking about the sub two, and the seller versus seller financing and stuff like that. Like I think that Pace has done an amazing job at creating a culture around sub two, and that's something that I would love to be able to replicate in the seller financing world. But at the root of everything, like sub two, seller finance, they're all just one. It's just a strategy, and like you've got to be able to understand all the strategies. Like, I mean, you don't have to understand all the strategies, but to be a well-rounded investor, I think you should, you know, have some knowledge in all of it. You don't want to just be a one-trick pony, right? You may be missing out on some deals if something like that happened. Like if you got a good seller finance, or if you got a good sub two deal, and it was juicy enough to flip, then you need to know how to flip it, right, and make 40, 50, $60,000. But again, that's just that's a little thing that I like to tell everybody, like, be well rounded, like, don't just be a one trick pony, right?
Yeah, I like that perspective. As I get older, I'm more like, let's focus on let's. I tried a bunch of things and I learned a bunch
Right.
of things, but I'd rather just buy creatively and sell creatively, or buy cash burr and sell creatively. Like that's it. Like I would just rather have 100 or couple hundred doors of just like a
Yes.
portfolio of
Yeah.
notes. That's all I want. I don't.
I
I
think I
never
think
hold.
as you get better, I think as time goes on, you get better. You find out what you're good at. Like some people are just killing it in flips. I hate flips. I got two going on right now, and I absolutely hate it.
It's interesting.
I got
Interesting.
two flips and like six seller finance deals going right now. So like you can tell what my priority is, but I'm not going to pass up if somebody like one of my students or whatever brings me a flip and they're like, hey, would you JV with me on it? Like I'll do that. If I find a super crazy deal, like I'll flip it. But if it doesn't go, like I've got one right now that's been on the market for like 3 months. I'm actually transitioning it to seller finance. So, it is what it is. Be
Yeah.
well rounded.
That sometimes like a situation like that, you're forced to learn a different exit strategy because you're like, okay, this one's not going to sell in the market.
Right.
Seller finance, and then, or it may not sell seller finance easy. You're like, well, let's go lease option and take a lesser option fee up front or something.
Right. Right.
So,
Exactly.
but yeah, before we get to seller finance back end of it, which I'm excited about, like on the Burr side, still, let me ask because I'm personally curious. Um, you have to buy you have to let's just say it's a cash deal. Let's go back to cash deal. Not seller finance acquisition, but you're buying cash
Mm-hmm.
and you have a DSCR lender that you're planning to refinance out. Are you first of all, are you doing a rate and term refinance or a cash out refinance with them?
Most of the time, we're doing cash outs.
Okay.
We want to. So I try not to take any money out of the deal. I try to just get their money back, the private money, hard money lender back their money. It depends on where we're at, because we had a huge tax bill come up, bit us on the butt that we weren't really prepared for. And so, like, I've got one that appraised for $100,000 more than what I expected it to appraise for, which is crazy. But I was like, okay, well, hey, here's a good opportunity to take some of this debt and pay off the tax bill. And the beautiful thing about the refinance is that when you pull that cash out, it's not taxable because it's actually debt, right? So I'm not an accountant, I'm not a CPA, don't sue me for if that's just what I'm doing. So
Yeah.
for in that instance, we're paying off a tax bill with non-tax money, right? So it depends on where we're at, what we're doing, right? But I try not to pull any extra because it just hurts your cash flow, right?
And the reason I'm asking, no, that's good. That's a good perspective, is because you're trying to probably get in, get out as fast as you can, and
Mhm.
sometimes there's seasoning requirements. So are you typically, tell us about the rehab? Are you typically rehabbing these to the T when you're planning to sell on seller finance, or what's your approach?
I'm I started out doing that. I think they'll move faster if you do that, but I realized after a little while that they would seller finance as is. I don't have to do the rehab. I can do some very, very small miscellaneous things. Like if it doesn't have an HVAC, I'll put an HVAC system in. But like if it's, you know, we'll put an HVAC system in. We'll do a deep clean on the house, and that's about it. Like we won't. If insurance says, "Hey, we need you to fix this for it to be insured," then we'll do a small punch list for the insurance. But that's about it, man.
So typically, on average, what's your rehabs cost for per property, single family property?
I mean, if it's got the HVAC, we're around 15. If it doesn't have the HVAC, I mean, we're way less than 10 most of the time. We're most of the time we're just throwing a deep clean on it.
Okay, I love that. This is something I've talked about on my channel too. I mean, I totally believe exact everything you're saying is spot on, man. I mean, like I've done the same thing of like just over rehabbing and thinking
Mhm.
this is what I because this is when you burr, like just go Google burr method or go search it on Apple Podcasts and you start listening. You'll be like, oh my gosh, okay, so here's how burr works. Like you have to buy at a great discount and then rehab it like as best as you possibly can. But what you're doing, you are doing BRRRR, but it's like with a view, with a totally different end goal in view, because you don't need it. You're not selling it on the market, so you're not aiming for retail value. In fact, you know that your end buyer, seller finance buyer, is going to be willing to pay top value anyways,
Right.
over what a retail buyer is going to pay because of the value of seller financing you're offering.
Hmm.
Um, so my question then is, how do you ever struggle with appraisals? Because if you're just doing a deep clean, some touch ups, let's say you're buying it, maybe you can walk us through like a deal. But my question here is like, does the appraisal ever come back and they say, hey, you guys didn't really rehab this thing?
Right.
We can't give you
Right.
that much. We can't give
Let
you that much loan.
less than a handful of times, and we have well over 150 doors, and it's happened less than a handful of times. Something that we do is we don't estimate ARV on these as is properties. We estimate the as is value. So, like, we'll find the ARV, and this is not an exact science, and it sounds so simple, but I mean it is. We take ARV and we subtract the rehab cost that it would take to get to that ARV, and that's what we consider roughly as is value. And we're super super conservative, and so we run our 75% of that, right? So when we're making the offers, we're already projecting as is at appraisal at as is minus the 75%, and we're trying to be right in there. And if it comes up and it's 10,000 or less short, then we're just going to roll with it. We're going to take the hit and go. If it's over 10,000, we're normally going back and we're saying, hey, we're not, never be mean to an appraiser. Like, you want to sweet talk that person. You want to give them, a packet up front, and just sweet talk them and say, hey, this is the numbers that I use. This is where we're at. This is what we've done to the property. This is how we got the property, everything like that. And typically it comes back at roughly where we need it to come back at. But if it doesn't, then we can say, hey, what's going on? Like, what can I, use these comps? Like, these are my comps. Can we come to an agreement on something? And if not, we've had one that come in like 30,000 short, and we went back and we argued it, and we actually had the bank just send another appraiser out, and it actually come in at right where we needed it to come in with the second appraiser, right? So sometimes appraisers have bad days, and you don't ever want to trash talk anybody or talk bad about anybody, but it's just one person's opinion, and that's the problem with that that model is that you
Yeah.
fall under
It,
that person's opinion sometimes.
yeah, it's a bottleneck where, yeah, it could possibly kill a deal. But like you're saying, you can always either, get another appraisal, you might have to pay for it, or find another lender. And again, probably have to pay for another appraisal there. But what you're saying is you actually present like some comps up front to the appraiser and just kind of let them know where you're coming from. And that usually kind of gives them an insight as to what you're doing and where you're hoping to be. That's smart. So when you're calculating your offer price or your formula, you said ARV minus repairs times 0.75. So 75% of ARV minus repairs
Yeah.
gives you where you need to come in at to purchase it.
I need
Are
to
you
be all in under that. So, like, closing costs, hard money fees. So, like, we'll take all that out of that, and that'll be where our max offer price is going to be. Like, once those fees and stuff are taken out.
Gotcha? Okay. Okay. And when you're talking about minus repairs, are you talking about the repair estimate on a like a retail flip or on your type of rehab?
Yeah, like a retail flip.
Retail. Okay.
Um, yeah, yeah. And think about this too. I just want to say this, like, and this will push you into the creative financing side a little bit more. But think about if that was a rental property and it come up $30,000 short, right? Where in the heck are you going to get $30,000 if you're just getting started, right? But if that was a seller finance deal and you put a tenant buyer in the property already, they probably put down $15,000-$20,000 as a down payment. So now you have this down payment. Now the gap's a lot less, like a lot smaller, right? So
Yeah, no, totally. That absolutely makes sense. Yeah, if there's a gap there and you have a down payment in hand, then that might cover the gap entirely in some cases.
yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. And then I take it that one last question on the DSCR burr front, then we can move on to another topic. But are you typically getting these refinanced before anybody's placed? Like so, uh,
Mhm.
because some DSCR lenders want a tenant in place with a lease and whatnot.
Yeah. 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 Even the small local banks, I mean, DSCR and small local banks, they'll do the refinance with somebody outside of it, but you always want to get somebody in before you do it. I would say if you can help it, you need somebody in because it makes it look so much better as a cash flowing asset rather than something that's going to be you're going to have to be paying a mortgage, waiting on somebody to get in and stuff like that, right? And I think honestly, I think appraisals. I've seen this before. I had a guy. He had a property, and I told him, I was like, you need to get a tenant in there. You need to get a packet for the appraiser. You need to have all your ducks in a row. And then he just went out and started the refinance immediately, and it come in short. And we looked at the appraisal, and it said it was a vacant property, and it was one of those ones that come up like $30,000 short. And he took the time. They didn't do the refinance. He got some time. He put somebody in it. He got them the packet, and it come back at exactly what he needed it to come back at. And it said it was an actual asset at that point. So I think it affects the appraisal too, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great insight, actually. So my next question transitions into your exit strategy, seller financing. We can talk about. So then, you're actually selling you're not doing lease options, right? Primarily, you're not doing lease options.
No, no,
Okay.
just straight seller finance.
And are you doing contract for deeds, or are you doing like a wraparound mortgage for your
Yeah,
seller?
we're doing land sales contracts. If it's got a mortgage on it, like if we're doing the Burr method, then we'll do a land sales contract. But if we do a seller finance deal from a seller, and we wrap it and we do a seller finance deal on the back end, if there's no debt, if that seller has a free and clear property, then we'll just do a note and a mortgage, right? So it really just depends on if there's debt or not on the property. But
Got
I'd
it.
say
Okay.
95% are land sales contracts, though.
Got it. Right. So if you personally or your business has an underlying mortgage on it, either from a sub two, but in your case, mostly like a local lender or DSCR lender, whatever, then you're going to do a land contract. You're calling it a land sales contract. Is that what you're referring to as?
Yeah, it's called different things in different states, but yeah, yeah, that's what it is for Alabama, Tennessee.
Alabama, Tennessee. Okay. Yeah, we call them contract for deeds or agreement for deeds, bond for deed, land contract. That's all the same thing. Um, so that is interesting. So let me tie this back. Let me ask a little bit more about that. But first, your DSCR lender or your local lender, they're okay with a contract for deed and being in place.
Yeah, so some of them are and some of them aren't. I try to word things carefully, but I try to also just be completely open and honest with everybody. I actually just interviewed a new DSCR lender the other day, and I asked him that because I'm upfront and honest about everything. I was like, "This is what we do. What do you think?" And he was like, "Well, if I don't know, then I don't know, right?"
Mhm.
So I've been told by the banks, some of the banks that I use, to, hey, get a lease agreement and give it to us, and check the box. All they need to do is check a box most of the time, but that's so we do that at closing. So we'll get a lease signed with the land sales contract. We'll say, hey, look, this is only for the bank. To check their box and this, that, and the other. But
Or
if they're not really for it, like if they just straight out say I'm not for it, then we don't use them, because I don't want to be put in that situation.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah, that's a little bit of like a wrench that somebody going down this path could come into when they finally get to the refi part. They're like, "Oh, wait, they're asking for a lease. Well, this is
Hmm.
contract for deed." But some people, some lenders view a contract for deed as a lease or like a triple net lease. I think some of them call it. Like that's what
It
one lender had ours referred to as. I was like, fine. I've never
pretty
heard
much
that.
is. I mean, you're renting it until it's pretty much you're renting it until you pay it off, and then you get the title, right? I mean, that's essentially the way that we look at it because we still have title, right? We still own the property,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so I mean, even our land sales contracts are not recorded unless we see
Yeah.
something going on and we need to. But
Well, let's just actually camp on that for 1 second, just for viewers here who may have no idea what we're talking about. So, can you explain just what is a land contract or a land sales contract exactly?
yeah, it's just a like a simple agreement that just states all the terms that we've agreed to, right? It states the purchase. It's kind of like a purchase agreement, right? It's a purchase price. It breaks down the interest that's paid, the down payment. It breaks down they're paying for the insurance, they're paying for the taxes, and how all of that transpires and how we manage all of that. It tells them that they're responsible for the property, for the upkeep. If if they want to make changes to the property, they can cosmetically, but if they need to pull permits, then obviously we still own it, so we've got to pull permits, so they've got to run all of that through us, right? So I mean, it's a couple of pages of just like just things to keep you safe. Always like my attorney, like my kids call my attorney Pawpaw and Nana, right? Like that's how close we are. I text my attorney all the time, and so everything that I know that he drafts for me is sided to protect me, right? And so I feel like that's a good relationship that you and your listeners, like you need to really be focusing on your relationship with your attorney because I don't do anything legal. I don't cut that up into a reel, right? I didn't mean to say it like that, but I don't draft anything. I don't do any of the contracts. Everything that I do, I send to him. He drafts it custom for me, and then because I know if he drafts it, he's going to back it in court, and I'm not going to have to worry about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, if you're doing volume of that totally makes sense. Yeah. How did you find your real estate attorney? Just curious.
Yeah, so when I first got started, man, I just like called as many attorneys in town that I could, title companies, things like that. I just asked them questions, simple questions like, "Hey, do you do creative financing? Do you do A to B B2C closings? Do you know how to do all of this?" And honestly, like we used several in the beginning, and then when we opened our office, there was an attorney's office right across the street from our office, and it was just so much more simple for us to just walk across the street and close deals. And so we just created a relationship with them, and that's over the past 6 years. That's who we've used almost every time, and it's
Awesome.
we've grown such a great relationship with them. And that's the thing too is like when you grow a relationship with the people that you're working with, like that attorney is one of our biggest private money lenders, right? Because they're closing our deals, they know what we're doing, and they know we know what we're doing. So like once you open up that relationship, they see what you're doing, and like some of your team members will be your biggest providers of funds.
Amazing. That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. So just s- to summarize that, the land contract, you guys are on title. Your buyers have equitable interest, like they are
Mhm.
effectively the buyer, but you are
Right.
legal owner still. So,
Hmm.
and let me just point out that you're not obligated in your state because otherwise your attorney would do it. You're not obligated to record these land contracts.
Right.
In some states you are, or at least like a memorandum or whatever. But so it's not even nothing's even recorded on record, county record in terms of this land sales contract. But your buyer is still building equity, like they still have equitable ownership. And um, are you able to evict on a contract or a land sales contract in
It's
your state?
here it's called an injection.
Okay.
It's a little bit easier, I would say, but we still look to foreclose. We get people to sign quick claim deeds with the land sales contracts to make it a little bit easier. Honestly, like I've only had two that we've had to do this with, and one of them just completely abandoned the property. Like we didn't know they moved to a different state. We didn't know until the utility company called and was like, "Hey, what's going on?" And then, the neighbors called and they're like, "The grass, it looks like a jungle over there. Like, what's going on?" And so we actually were able to do an abandonment statement and just take it back like that. So
Okay.
it was it was a little bit easier, yeah. But in some states, I mean, you're gonna have to go through the whole foreclosure process and everything.
Yeah, yeah, but you're fortunate where you're working. You could do an ejectment that is probably faster than a foreclosure and cheaper, I'd
Yeah,
imagine. Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Okay, so that's a benefit. Let me back up one second here. Like, what's the ideal type of neighborhood, price point, class of neighborhood where maybe bed and bath count too. We can add that in there
Mhm.
where you're targeting these deals, or where do
Yeah.
these deals work the best?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we've done them in just absolutely trashy neighborhoods. Like, I don't go into war zone, but like, trashier neighborhoods. We've done them all the way up to like really, really good neighborhoods, and they work. I would say like they work in all of them. But like the larger, like 3 bed, 2 baths, 3 bed, 1 bath, like those are like 3 beds up or where you really want to target. What I've seen is the people who are seller financing from us, they don't really like the 2 1s. We've only got one of those in our portfolio. So that's I think you can do it with just about anything as long as you stay in the right price range. What we've noticed in our areas in the North Alabama, Southern Middle Tennessee area is like you can once you get up to the 200,000 plus range, it starts to sit longer, and once you get over 250, it's like, I mean, you better just buckle up and be ready, right? Because
Yep.
because we're obviously selling at a higher interest rate, and at some point that payment gets to be ridiculous, so
Ask about that. Okay, that's great. So I think maybe St. Louis market might be like a just a slight notch up. So I totally resonate with what you're saying. I'd say probably that 350 point is where like we start to kind of be concerned. But I was going to ask about. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
talking about the interest rate, the gap.
Oh yeah, so the payment. So because okay, so when you're trying to price out how much your buyer's payment to you should be, like what you'd like to get to cash flow, we should talk about cash flow on these deals, like what
Right,
your average
right.
cash flow is. Let me ask that first, then I'll get to this other question. What's your average, if you could just ballpark it, cash flow on one of these seller finance deals where you're selling on a land contract?
Yeah, net is around 650, which is,
650 on
yeah,
average.
coming from like a rental background, that's insane. That's like 3 rental
Bananas, dude.
properties, right?
650 on average per
Yeah.
deal.
Mhm. Yeah,
Holy smokes.
the reason we can get that though is because we're getting the discounted properties, deeply discounted. We're having like I used to have a minimum of $30,000 gap between what I purchased it for and what I sell it for. Now we're getting closer to averaging about 50,000. So we got a pretty good spread as far as like purchase and sales price. But the bigger thing is like we're getting a 4% gap between our interest rate and their interest rate. So we're
Okay,
somewhere around sevens, they're somewhere around 11. So
got it.
that's what we're doing.
All right. And you find that people are, because I just know people are going to be thinking this question, like residents, people who want to own a house out there, they're willing to pay an 11% interest rate.
Yep. I feel like, just like anything, you have to have an abundance mindset. Like there are people out there, and there's some people that'll never own a house, other than going through this, right? And there are certain things that we can do and banks that we can put them with that will help them, fix their credit, that will help them be able to purchase this property way sooner. But honestly, man, what we've seen is like they don't. They just make the payments and they go, right?
Yeah.
We try to make our structured payments like as as easy as possible for them. Like we're stretching these out for 30 years, 20, 30 years. And, we're trying to make it as easy as possible for them. So it's not like if it's stretched 30 years, it's not like it's absolutely ridiculous. But, there
Well,
are
I
people
mean,
that pay it.
they're going to own the house. I mean, they are not throwing money away every single month on rent. Rent's like an infinite interest rate, isn't it? And you own nothing at the end of renting, right?
And that's how we get around that. Is that's what we tell them. Well, how much of your rent's going towards principal? So
so what you're offering, like the product that you're offering, is of tremendous value. It's just that it seems not enough people are offering it, so people are willing to pay. There's like low supply, and there's high demand, and so you kind of get to come in um, and get paid for that what you're offering.
yeah,
So my previous question I wanted to ask was like, so let's just take your rental comps on a typical deal. So like if you're going to buy a house, do a little rehab, burr it out, and then go find a seller finance buyer. You're looking at the numbers. Let's say the property rents for like $1,200 a month. Where can you try and find a buyer's payment? Like where would you place your ideal buyer's payment? Would it be
yeah. I mean,
1,200 or
I don't even look at rents, to be honest with you. I just get on my mortgage calculator. I've got a mortgage calculator app, and I just do. I put it at ARV. I put it out at ARV because, like, think about this: you're not getting that. Um, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? I just went blank on it. The value as it goes in years, as we go down the 10, 20 years, you're not going to get that value appreciation.
right?
We're not going to get appreciation out of this, unless they back out, or they you have to evict them or whatever. You don't get that appreciation, so we sell it as is for ARV, just to kind of collect a little bit of that, right? So we just take ARV, we throw it in a calculator, we put a minimum of 10% down, and we start out at 11 and a half, and then we can negotiate from there. But I don't go less than 10%. And that's how we decide payments, and that we put that out on Facebook too. It's like, hey, when we're selling these properties, here's roughly what your mortgage payment's going to be if you put this down, and this is the purchase price, right?
Dang, dang. So you're not even looking at rental comps. You're just and you've done enough volume now that you know that like there's a market for what you're doing. And do people generally, is it difficult to find people who have at least 10% for a down payment? So if these houses are like 150, I guess that would be like 150K
15 grand.
house, that's 15 grand. Like is that difficult?
We found that the 10 to 15 range is what we're going to get, and I'm fine with that. Like, I don't, honestly, I don't care about the down payment. I care about the cash flow, and you can see that in our average, right? We care about cash flow more than down payment. So we'll take a little bit less of a down payment, but usually it's between 10 and 15 grand.
Okay. And how do you find your buyers?
I just throw them straight on Facebook, man. And so,
Really?
like, here recently, like, I wish it was sexier than that, but we just throw it on Facebook. We put the terms on there, and people reach out. And then we also put a flyer together, and we send it to all of our other tenant buyers, and we say, hey, if you bring us somebody and they buy one of our houses, then we'll give you 1 month's rent. 1 month, we'll pay 1 month's mortgage for you. So.
That's a great concept. So are
Mhm.
you on like the buy sell trade websites primarily or
Just
marketplace?
marketplace. Yeah, just marketplace. You get a
Okay.
lot of you get a lot of when you get which it's crazy, but when you put them on the yard sale pages, man, you get people that just show up to your houses and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
you don't get that as much on the marketplace.
That's a bit sketch. So you're getting 10% down generally,
Mhm.
at least a 10% interest rate, and you're getting ARV as the sales price.
Yep. hmm It's crazy, ain't
You are in a
it?
hot market for seller financing, my friend.
Yeah, yeah. It's we've been blessed with it, man. And like
Yeah.
I said, I kick myself all the time for not just knowing creative financing from the very beginning. And that's why I teach it. Like, that's why I'm like, you guys have got to understand this, because I'm hoping that I can save somebody else and get them to where I was faster, or
Right.
where I am faster, and not have to go through all the crap that I had to go through.
Gosh, man. Yeah, yeah, that's true. So let me ask you, how do you scale from, you got a few properties, you want to get up to 150? Do you have to build a team? Do you have to really grind it out? Like what's the process that you went through the
Yeah, man.
milestones from.
It was, it's tough, but we done it with a very, very small team. I'm not a fan of overhead. We grew a team and it was terrible. I had employees getting paid, and when I wasn't, and you don't ever want to be in that position. So we honestly, when we started buying that many houses, it was just me, my business partner, and our two wives. And one of the wives was the manager of the properties. One of them was the manager of the rehabs. I was the guy that was doing the acquisitions side of it, and then my business partner was the guy that was doing the dispositions, the sales side of it. So we had a really solid thing going, and once we hit a certain number, my business partner is my best friend, and we had a conversation, and we said, "Hey, we're happy where we're at. We're at now. We're going to go build our own portfolios. We still
Mhm.
have this one that's giving us money and paying for things, and so now we're working on our own portfolios. So, yeah, it was just 3 or 4 years of just grinding it out. And I'll tell you, like last year, I took a huge break. We traveled a lot. I try to go to Africa a couple of times a year.
Mm.
We've been up to St. Louis. We've been to Florida, the mountains. We go and do, and that's why we do the seller financing now, is because we don't ever hear from people, man. Like it's just the only thing I hear is, "Hey, I'm going to
Amazing.
pay my mortgage payment, this day." That's the only problem we have
Yep.
is like, "Hey,
Yep.
it's going to be coming in this day."
Right.
So,
The date of when you receive the money. That's pretty
right.
much the only thing. Do you actually on that kind of one follow-up question? I want to get more to your team and virtual. Do you use virtual assistants to leverage your?
We did. We did back in the day, and then we cut them. Honestly, like now, all I have is an acquisitions guy, and I have a realtor that helps me sell my property, seller financing. So we don't even really have a team anymore. My wife still manages the properties just because they're so easy. So we save that 10%, right? And so it's pretty easy. I think the next step in our team is we will probably, once the acquisitions guy is like just super confident and he's good to go, we'll probably hire somebody to take the management side out for my wife, and she'll be completely out.
Do you use a note servicer to service your land contracts?
Yeah, so you talking about to get it kind of get around the Dodd-Frank stuff.
No, not RMLO stuff. Just like a third party note servicer that like would service a mortgage. Some of them service land contracts too.
We
Sounds like
don't.
okay.
We may. That may be something we look into when we go to replace. It really depends. Because you could put somebody on a salary or something like that, and it'd be more beneficial to you. But yeah, I mean, it really, when the time comes, it really just depends on what's going to be easiest for us to manage.
No, it's all good. So you're actually collecting the payments from your buyers, like a Zelle payment or Venmo or Cash App, or you
Yeah.
have a portal or something. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. That does create a little bit more. I discovered a couple years ago after we'd done a number of them. I was like, dang it, I wish I would have known this. But there's like note servicers out there for a very marginal monthly fee. I mean, it could be like $30, and you can
Hmm.
pass it on to your buyer. They'll collect the payment, they'll communicate with the buyer, and then the 1098, the interest statement at the end of the year, that's kind of like an annoying thing where it's like, oh, dang it, it's a new year, I got to get out my interest payments to my buyers because they need it for their tax purposes. And then if there's late payments or this or that or escrow adjustments, I'm like, this is annoying. Like I don't have to deal
Right.
with this. The note servicer, $30 a month, you can pass it on to your buyer. They do like all of that stuff. And you might think of like bad property management, hiring a terrible property manager and being like, I would never entrust my precious portfolio of cash flowing
Right.
properties to some management company. But like you're saying, is it's just collecting the payment. Like that's it. That's all they have to do. There's no maintenance or construction or anything like that. So, yeah, that's one thing that I found can actually take a lot of work off of my plate. That way, I'm not messaging the tenants when they're late. I don't have to keep track of that stuff, but
Right. Right.
I
Yeah.
still
That's
have a
good.
number of them where I have to do it, and it's like, okay, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to get your contact for that who you're
yeah,
using, because that may make
yeah,
things a lot easier, So
yeah. Well, absolutely. I'm glad I could at least offer one useful thing to you.
yeah.
You're doing an awesome job, man. I'm just like inspired by by what you've been able to build in such a short period of time, man. It's amazing. So you've given a lot of great information. One last question, and then I'll let people. You can tell people how to get a hold of you. But let's just one last question on like advice for a newbie. This is a great question. No matter
Yeah.
what you're listening to, like what would be your one piece of advice for the person wanting to get into this, not sure where to start?
Yeah, I think honestly, like uh, just getting started is obviously the number one thing. Like we run into people all the time, and you see them too. It's like people that have never done a deal before, but they're on Facebook groups saying, "Hey, what's the best CRM to use?" And I'm like, "You don't have deals, you don't have leads. Like, why are you even asking about a CRM, right?" So, like, getting started, getting in there, doing like leads first, like that should be your first priority is finding leads. Like, don't worry about CRMs, don't worry about anything other than finding good deals and negotiating, right?
Yeah,
And then one more thing that I see with newbies a lot is that once they get their first deal, they stop working on the pipeline and focus all their time and energy on this one deal. And if it falls through, then now they've got to spend another 2 months getting that pipeline pumped back up, right? And so, like, always be focusing on finding other deals, even if you got this one property that you think's going to be great. You never know what's going to happen. So always continue to work on the pipeline.
yeah. And you're sourcing your own deals. You're not using wholesalers.
Mhm. No, I'm using wholesalers. I'm using rental. I'll tell like five or six of the properties that we've done this year have come from wholesalers and realtors. We are doing our own marketing, but like we're heavily, and that's something like I do with my acquisitions guys too. Is they when they don't have calls coming in, when they don't have texts, or they're not doing their follow up, they're looking for properties on the market. They're making at least 3 to 5 offers a day on the market and to wholesalers on top of all the other stuff coming in.
Got it. So you're doing some direct seller marketing
Mm-hmm.
yourselves. I know
Hmm.
that that's how I met you. It was on Nicholas Nick, the Lead Mining Pros mastermind call. So obviously you're doing some outbound calling or texting, but then you're also you got your acquisition guy looking at on market stuff and
Yep.
networking with wholesalers, making offers. So that's interesting. Really a mixed bag approach.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, we're doing some PPL, we're doing some postcards, and the lead mining pros as well. So
Okay. I wanted to at least touch on that because I just feel like some people would probably say, "Why didn't you ask him about how he's getting his leads?" But I know we could talk for a lot longer about all
yeah, we
this
need to do a part two or something.
for sure.
Yeah, man. I mean, y'all can find me Wyatt Reed on just about anything, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. If you As far as the coaching goes, it's called Ascend Your Success. So we have a beginners program and we have a mastermind. So whether you're brand new, never done a deal, or whether you're doing, deals and it's inconsistent, like we can help you do either one. And so just go to ascendyoursuccess.com and we'll talk. I'll talk to you personally. So
All right, Wyatt. Well, thanks for being on here, brother, and very appreciative to you for sharing your experience, man.
yeah.
Let's get a part two scheduled for later in the year. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'd love to have you on mine as well. So let's do it.
All right, brother. Sounds great.
All right. See you.